Good afternoon. I'm Manognya and I'm the current head of WiCS, the Women in Computer Science community at IIT Madras, where we aim to foster a sense of oneness and support system among the women interested in computer science and technology. We wish to create a community of motivated women who will themselves be leaders in their own fields by giving them opportunities and the platform itself. So we help our members grow in technical and personal aspects by conducting talks, sessions, and meetings. So we really appreciate that what you are doing as well with similar objectives in mind. So which is why we wanted to talk to you and to learn more about your thoughts, ideas, and tips as a senior leader in the field. So thank you so much for joining us today. We have Drishti with us today. She'll be taking your interview. Over to
Oh,
you,
good.
Drishti.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And which year in engineering are you in?
I'm in my final year of
Okay.
electrical engineering.
Electrical.
Uh,
Okay.
I'm in
Yes.
my second year of mechanical engineering.
Okay. Okay.
First of all, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for taking out time. And we'll begin by asking some questions to you. So, every journey is challenging in its own way. Please tell us about your career journey and how it took you to being an entrepreneur.
Well, I think you got it spot on by saying every journey is like challenging in its own way. But I think at the outset, I'd probably like to say that though I started my career about 3 decades ago, you all are not on the earth for so long. But even at that point of time, I don't think I ever had that question in my mind: am I ever going to work? Am I ever going to have a career? I just knew that I would, right? So that's one of the things I think that stood me apart from some of my peers at that point of time who were willing to probably let careers take a back seat. And so so one of the things that happened was the fact that I decided to start my career in Mumbai. I can tell you, heartache, my apologies to if both of you all or anyone who listens to this recording is from Mumbai, but I came from the Nilgiris, which is, calm. Everybody knows everybody. And, it's pure, clean, fresh air. And it's hills and all that kind of thing. And suddenly you're being catapulted into just crowds of people. And I think that was my first learning of, how I have to fend for myself, how there's so much ambiguity in life, how it's, even if you find it challenging, you just somehow have to stick on and try to do the best you can do with everything. So it started there. And then I joined the IT industry in 1990. And I joined Wipro at that point of time. And I think from that point, there was no looking back, because from the early 90s is when the IT industry really took off as an outsourcing kind of place for India, and then I also took off with it. So it was just a great growth potential. Of course, it was a lot of like running in the same place kind of thing, but yeah, it was a thing. So, and then it steered me in a direction of where I found a sense of purpose, where at Infosys, I did a lot of roles. Okay. And that's one of the things I would all urge you all to do is don't think of careers as going always upward, but also like move lateral. You can go like this, and then reach the top. But and that's what Infosys taught me, because I went through different places like that. And as a result, I think it gave the foundation for being an entrepreneur, because then I didn't have to look far afield, because if I'd grown like this, I would have only known this. But because I grew like this, I knew so many other things. And coming from where in 2006, I mean, I know you're going to probably ask me that question, but in 2006, I started heading in Infosys what is called the Infosys Women Inclusivity Network. Very aptly, acronym is IWIN. And when I headed that, we had our first ever conference for women. And one of the things that happened there was that we couldn't find a single person who could be a chief guest for us, who could be a keynote speaker, right? And we had to then ask some of our customers, and somebody who was going to travel to India from Australia then, who was a CTO of one of the companies, came forward and said that, okay, I'm coming to India anyway, and I can be the keynote. And that really set me thinking that at that point, we didn't have anybody in a CXO level. The people we started talking about at that time were people who were in the banking industry. There was nobody in the tech space at that point. And it was kind of interesting. And I said, if that's the trend, it will continue because women are dropping off the workforce like flies. So again, 5 years later, if you ask who can keynote, there'll be nobody. Ask 10 years later, now ask me now also, the keynoting possibilities are very few. So that set me thinking. And then, I then started getting very heavily involved and even helped NASSCOM set up their diversity and inclusion setup, and then moved on to Anita B, which kind of aligned with my need for getting inclusion for women in tech in the same space. But one of the aspects that actually sent me on the whole entrepreneurial journey was the fact that there is so much that is integral to India, right? And if you look at the forces around us, like if I'm sitting here as an individual, the forces that surround me, one is me as an individual, right? Me, my characteristics, the way I speak, the way I think. The next one is my family. They bring a different kind of surrounding to me that changes my whole outlook, my perspectives in life. And the third thing is probably my organization that I belong to, that will change the way that I'm thinking. Then the community and society I belong to, right? Because I'm fortunate, I am privileged, but there are many who are not fortunate and privileged, because I've seen all these, I mean, even as recent as that I've seen this ad where I forget which company it is, but it's about sharing, where the mother pours milk into the 2 glasses, and she gives the milk with full glass to the son, and she gives the one with half or quarter to the daughter, and the son pours half of it to into her cup so that it becomes equal. But that's the scenario that we are fighting with in a society where the milk is always given to the son. And here, and I keep saying this, that life is so binary as a woman, because you will, as I don't have a choice whether I'm born or not. Somebody can kill me, right? Even before I'm born. I don't have a choice of education. Somebody can decide not to give me education. It's not in my hands. So the choices for women, I mean, I got really upset recently. A LinkedIn post said, you make your own choices. And I said, yeah, you're talking from a male privilege point of view. You can make your own choices, but can a woman make their own choice? They can't, right? So it's those kind of things that tried me to think that, listen, our society is different. The way we think culturally is different. We can bring Western concepts only to strengthen what we already know. It cannot be brought about and absolutely done cut and paste. It doesn't work, because we'll tell the same story again and again and again. And the second aspect is that when I wanted to go into entrepreneurship is, I feel that we should, if we really want, I don't know if you've seen, if you're like plowing a field or something, the more pressure you put to plow the field, I mean, the furrows are much better. So if we all work in competition, right? If a women in computer science then does with women in data sciences versus an ACMW, I mean, where is life? You'll all be at cross purposes, all having very event driven, or outlook. So I wanted to, when I started as an entrepreneur, to make collaboration a very, very key aspect of how we go forward. And that's how, I mean, it's a long journey, so I can't put it very shortly, but yes, it should best be described as this if someone sees the video, but not this.
Thank you so much for sharing your journey. It will be really helpful for us. You have been in the industry since so long. So, have you ever experienced any significant gender gap? And you think it is yet to be bridged? You feel that it's yet there? Is there any experience which you would like to share with us?
Personally, as I said, I've been very privileged. I've not been discriminated against. But then if you look at it, I don't know how many people are in your class, but you know, India is the highest in terms of women being educated in STEM, the highest in the world. But we're number 19 when it comes to employing them. Right. So Belong did a survey where they said if 29% of women join the workforce at any time, after 12 years, only 7% of them would be left. Right. And this is the whole thing. It's one aspect is the discrimination that comes from a very, I mean, I'm using big words here, but it's an androcentric organization, right? All the, you know, competencies that are required, all the leadership, you know, abilities that are required, all are very androcentric. And when I mean androcentric means it's male centric. It's not that, it's just that males have been longer in the business, so then they've created the things that suit them, right? So it's nothing against them. I mean, they did it for their comfort. But unfortunately, we have to go into that, you know, citadel and try to get out of that thing. So one of the things that we've noticed is when there are men who try very hard to do it, and I have a case in point where when I was working at Infosys, where an unconscious bias became, you know, an aspect where women who had given birth to a child, they were all sitting in a project meeting, and one of them was supposed to go to, you know, some foreign country to carry on the implementation of the project. And the project manager asked everybody in the room, but just skipped her. And when asking, why did you skip her? The reason was, you've got a small child. How can you travel? You know, so the thing was, he has taken the decision that she can't go. And that's a very unconscious kind of bias. Is he a good man? Has he thought of everything? Yes, good boss, good leader. But his style of thinking is his unconscious bias that he's got from, you know, earlier I was saying, no, from the family, from society, everything. When you have a young child, you can't go. That's his thinking, right? And that kind of thinking is across, and that has contributed a lot to the gender gap.
Yeah, so sorry, ma'am. My net got disconnected.
Okay. I finished your gender gap question, so you can continue with the next.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Going to the next question. Do you recall any biases or assumptions that were made about you, something that people maybe told to you, kind of tried to stop you while you were pursuing your career?
Um, as I was saying in your previous question, unfortunately, I haven't been exposed to bias too much. But then, you know, I know you won't want to let me go with just saying, oh, you couldn't have, you know. Okay. So I shifted out of Infosys in the year 2008 and was planning actually to, you know, just quit, sit, be comfortable at home variety. But then a friend of mine said, you know, you shouldn't waste all those wonderful resources you have in your head. Come and join us. So I joined ANZ, which is Australia New Zealand Bank, as their head of HR. And when my resume went out, I mean, 2008 itself, it was a considerably heavy resume, right? So it went out to the profile of my team in ANZ saying that this woman is going to come. So they imagined somebody like really like with weight, right? With weight in all kinds of senses of the term. And since you cannot visibly see me, but I'm not a very tall person, okay? And so when I walk in, you know, they were like, is this the woman they were all talking about who's had this, you know, fantastic resume behind her? But of course, that's, I mean, what happens afterwards is another story. But it's just that probably that's one of the things I always say is, like I said about unconscious bias, there's a book by Malcolm Gladwell it's called Blink, okay, that says within, you know, seconds, we all take a decision. And this is very important for you when you're like going for your first interview, because you must understand they say, I think within the first 7 seconds, 11 decisions are made about you. Right? Within 7 seconds, 11 decisions are made about you, and you are not even responsible for them, right? But you are in a way, right? Because the way you dressed, the way you walked in, the way you sat, the way everything was very, very important. So I think, and that's probably a little bit of a bias that everybody has, suffered from some form of fashion at some time in life. The physical unconscious bias.
Yeah. So, are there any important tips, advice which you wished you knew earlier before you entered the industry when you were, say, studying? And what's the best work-related advice you would have ever received from someone that really helped you in your career?
Um, yeah, it's kind of a long history of being in the industry for so long. But one of the things that I learned that was so different from my first job was the fact that if you want to be a woman in technology, right, or you want to be a woman in that space, it's it takes time for us to get acceptance from our peers. And I'm talking about when you're one woman in amongst 20 men, or you're one woman amongst 15 men. So at that table, you are, your voice is much, it's much squeakier, less, baritone, and the ability to say, this is what I'm thinking, kind of stuff. So the whole thing of, I think, is that in that bedrock, how do you make yourself stand out? Okay, it's something similar to why you all are heads of clubs and things like. You want your resume to stand out when somebody looks at it, right? So how do you stand out as an individual in your resume? Is because you have to be different. Otherwise, every student is the same. You all studied the same things and from the same college. How do I pick you over someone else? And I think that learning, if I had earlier, that you have to somehow bring in that difference throughout your career. I was just fortunate. I mean, I was that, these, when you go for all these, what are those places where you have, mm, okay, these water theme parks where you have something called a lazy river, where you just sit inside a inflatable thing and the river just takes you. I mean, that's the best thing for people like me, but people younger than me, like you and all, would want to go through rapids and go through different kind of, yeah. So but that river approach in my life at least helped me, because there were people on the way, mentors, sponsors, who took care and pushed my inflatable down the right way and things like that. But today's world, that's not there. I don't think you'll have so many people who are watching out for you, looking out for you, and you have to create and carve your own individual space. I think that was a great learning, that if you could just know that you have to make sure that you're different. And that could be because you learn, you're an SME on something, you're the go-to person for something, it could be anything, but you have to make sure you carve that difference out for yourself.
Yeah. Adding up to that, do you think like as a woman or as like a girl, you have to put extra efforts as compared to men to stand out, like,
Absolutely. But it's not that the individual men need not do it. And I'm saying it more from a very organizational perspective, where I was talking about, again, androcentric. The processes in organizations, unfortunately, today are still focused on the male. So it's androcentric competencies, androcentric leadership processes, androcentric performance processes. Everything is very androcentric. As a result, women have to struggle much harder, right? And the second aspect where women have to struggle much harder is the fact that I don't know if y'all have faced it. You're a younger generation, but in the women generation that I belong to, networking it comes easily only from a very personal perspective and never from a very professional perspective. Today, I can pick up and call one of my male team members and say, I just want you to do this. And the conversation can be 3 minutes and it's over. But if I call any of my female colleagues, I must talk about my family, how I went through COVID, how I'm suffering, etc. It's not that, kind of split and professional, it's over. I don't want to talk about my family. I want to get this thing done. That difference is there. I don't know if it still is there in your generation. We'll only know when you all come to the workforce. But and so that aspect also probably creates a little bit of a problem for us, the networking aspect, as well as then the first aspect of saying it's so androcentric. But don't get disheartened, because there are many women out there who've carved a good space for themselves, are highly technical, And if you follow our Wequity Spotlight, you'll see women who are in companies that we've never even heard of, who are doing so well technically that it's a really amazing.
Absolutely, absolutely. You have already talked about this. You talked about Wequity, but please tell us more about why you decided to start Wequity and what it does, and what are some of the significant achievements you have had with it.
Right. So Wequity, as let me talk a little about the name since we're so very proud of it. The W is of course women, but equity, okay, stems from the fact that many organizations say that we are an equal opportunities employer, right? You've seen enough WhatsApp messages, everything saying what is equal opportunity, and if you're a track athlete that runs on a track, or you've seen the Olympic Games, if you're not a track athlete, you see people who are on the outer track are put a little ahead. The people who are in the inner track are put at the back. Why is that done? Right? If it is equal opportunity, everybody should be standing together and running together, right? But it's not, it's staggered. That's because it's equity. I am given things that is necessity for me to succeed. So the inner track guy needs a little bit more, less, because he's running a smaller track. So he's given only that much space, while the person who's on the outer thing needs more. So that person is given more space. And there's WhatsApp messages that show, three people looking over a wall on a cricket field. They can't see what's happening. We give similar planks of, stools to everybody, but the little child still can't see. That's equal opportunity. So Wequity comes with a philosophy. You will get equitable outcomes only if you give equity. So all our solutions are customizable to the individual, and we look at the individual holistically and see how we can make that person succeed, like a women in corporate. And currently, our phase one focus is only women in corporate, because we're trying to stem the leaking pipeline, which is the biggest factor for the corporate world today. Because, as I told you, 29%, 12 years later, there's 7% left, right? If 29 people in 100 join, 7 people in 100 are left over after 12 years. And that's a sad story, because we are losing so much of institutional knowledge. We're losing so much of the talent pool. And so our focus is to reduce the barriers for women in tech in corporates. And our plan is to do it through collaboration. And if you've been following us, we've just signed up our latest one with Women in Cybersecurity. We've got a partnership with them. So and we have a partnership with the AI group in Europe. So that we're going to do it only by collaboration, because we can't be an expert in everything we do. Right, we will borrow from all the experts and resources. And if you look at our Wequity Spotlight, you will see women who are technically very, very competent, have been in the industry for 20, 25 years, and can serve as role models for each one of you. I mean, they are brilliant women in their own way. Wequity has also had 2 editions of their Wequity Awards, the only ones in the country for women in technology, and 1 award for any male ally or male equalizer that has helped a women in technology. Yeah. So that's the only one. We've had 2 editions so far, and absolute success, because it's a good place for women to get recognized. Yeah. And if you stay tuned, we're still young. We're only 1.5 years old, so you will see much more coming from our stable going forward.
It's really we are really lucky to have leaders like you. Like, you guys didn't had many, we have like you. So it's really
to mentor us. I mean, it's being recorded, so I shouldn't say it. But then I did go to an institute where I said, I'll bring role models. I mean, nice gray-haired role models like me. But all the girls were saying, no, we'd prefer people who are just like 3 years, 4 years in the industry, so we can learn from them. But I always say that those 3 years, 4 years is only because you're looking for a job. But if you're looking for a career, the gray-haired people are the best for you to look out for. So I'm very, very glad that you're doing this. I really appreciate it and feel very honored.
So in what ways is Wequity different from Anita BORG in terms of goals and objectives?
I'm going to be repetitive here. It's very focused on Indian women in technology, so it's an Indian
Yeah.
focused aspect. We because India has a huge potential of women, especially in the services industry. The top 5 IT companies, employment wise, um, they have to be looked after, and it's a whole service industry that we will be focusing on. And it's a lot about collaboration. It's not about events. It's not about having career fairs. It's about giving what you need as an individual. So it's probably on different sides of the spectrum completely, because we're looking at the individual and its holistic development of that individual, rather than just having conferences or a career fair that's a one-off event. In fact, we've got such a strong base. There are women who reach out to us saying, "Can I join this organization? Do you think it's got good culture?" and things like that. So it's a different.
Absolutely. So like you guys are doing such a great job. How do you like aim to publicize Wequity, and how do you provide incentives to people to attend various events and everything?
Again, we're not an event-driven company, so it doesn't mean we don't need to publicize it so much. So we are building a foundation, or a, very crudely put, a database of women in tech, right? So the women who have two things. There are women who want to give back, and there are women who want. So there is always a giving and receiving. And at every point in time, once I'm receiving, once I'm giving. But every point of time, it's a different aspect. So we want to give that holistic development for every woman in technology. And so that's, again, emphasizing we're not event driven. There are enough people out there who are event driven, so you won't see conferences coming from us, you won't see anything like that. There'll be a lot of engagement from us, more from the perspective of how to engage you, Drishti, how to do what you want, right? It's not about how all of you all want in IIT. It's not, IIT Madras is not the goal, but it's you, personally you, what do you need?
That's great. So, like as a female leader, what has been the most significant barrier in your career? You would like something that you would want to share, so that, and what have you learned from it?
I think I wouldn't say it's a barrier, but it's one always thinks that that life and work are a trade-off, or like family and life is a trade-off, or family and work is a trade-off. And very often we get caught in that cycle, that of guilt, of when you're at work you feel, oh, I'm not spending enough time in home. When you're at home, you're thinking, oh God, I've left so much left over at the office, and I wonder what my boss will say, etc. So it becomes like such a guilt trade-off. Sometimes you're not giving your best to the workplace, you're not giving the best to your home when you come back. And I got this something that I live by, and you'll see that in a lot of, if you look at any of my interviews, I don't talk a lot about my personal stuff, right? There are a lot of people who talk about their partners, their children. I don't talk, and that's because I learned this from a very early stage from one of the. I mean, he was an office boy, or a peon, as they say in those days, but his brother used to be the head of the union. So very important personality in Mumbai when you're head of a union. So anything he says is, oh, of course. But what he told me is, never take the dust from your office to your home. It's very figurative. I mean, it's said in Marathi, makes more sense. Don't take the dust from your home to the office, and from the office, don't bring dust from your home to the office either. Both ways, the dust should not mingle, because at that point you will do justice both ways. When you're in office, think, if there's an emergency, somebody is going to call you, and they will, or you've kept someone there to do something in your family to take care of that emergency. So if there is an emergency, they will call you. There's an emergency in office, they'll call you at home. So you don't have to worry, right? And telephones existed then also, right? So there was no big. So he says, if you can leave that and can separate those two And I think that's a brilliant advice I've got from him, that personally and professionally, so you can excel in both areas very comfortably, because you're not, getting overwhelmed by everything falling on your head together.
Yeah. There's no need to choose one. We can have both, like the work as well as the personal life. Yeah, absolutely. So what is the leadership lesson that you have learned that's unique to being a female leader?
Uh, okay, that's a hard one, but all leaders should have this, is what I'm saying, and especially in today's world. Okay, because I've been doing, I think, uh, I've been doing like 30, 40 sessions since the pandemic started. And one of the things that has come out very, very clearly is this work from home and remote working, all those things have come to stay, right? And so and as a result, one of the key things that the pandemic had brought forth is that leaders have to have the ability to face uncertainty, right? And so I've done enough sessions on that, is how do we face uncertainty? And there's this guy called Norm Smallwood. Okay, he came up with two things that, when somebody faces ambiguity, right, you can be an ambiguity amplifier. Means you can just say, oh, we're all facing uncertainty, what should we do? I've got COVID, my lungs filling with my lungs will now get shot for the next 2 years. I can do that. That's an ambiguity amplifier. But there's an ambiguity diminisher, right? Who then tries to diminish ambiguity for their team. And so I think whether it's male or female in today's world, nobody wants the amplifier. They want the diminisher. And if we can handle ambiguity and uncertainty and be leaders who are calm, collected, and have emotional intelligence, I think that becomes the key. And women are in that sweet spot because we have high emotional intelligence.
Yeah, yeah. What advice would you give to women who are starting a career in tech or any male-dominated profession? To us, we are in college, we are going to start a career now. So, any advice for all of us?
I mean, this is very advice. This is hindsight 2020 vision, right? Because I've seen my career at the back like this, and I know what it is. So hindsight is 2020 vision. But one of the things that if early on in life you can get a sense of purpose, right? If you know where you're going very early on in life, your choices become so much easier. And as you know, many people like Jeff Bezos and all have said, your choices then will be that whether you'll regret this choice or you won't regret this choice, right? Example, if you got IIT Madras, which is right next to you, and then it's not close to your home, but then you get something that's very close to your home, but it's not is not, of course, of the caliber of IIT. So what would you choose? You would regret it if you go to the one that's near your house, right? Because you've lost that chance of being an IITian, right? So those kind of regret choices can be avoided if you know what you want. If you just want an engineering degree, and then you want to course through life merrily, then any college will do. Why IIT? Why do I study at all, right? I need not go for anything. So if you know your sense of purpose and you have then those goals around it, your decisions become so much easier, and you can then say yes, no so much faster. So that I would urge everybody who's coming to have an established career identity and a sense of purpose. So then life becomes easier, your career decisions become easier, and then the choices you make become easier.
Yeah. You're not overwhelmed by so many
You're not
choices if you have a
overwhelmed.
sense of goal. Yeah, that's a great advice. What steps do you think we students can take to achieve gender equality in tech? Anything that you believe we can do?
So one of the things when you were introducing the women in computer science, you spoke about that you do technical courses, plus you do the self-development kind of courses. And I think that's so important in terms of that you have to equally focus on both, because this is anecdotal, but it's what I've seen. Women, after a point, 26% of all pure engineering jobs will be held by women, but about 38% join, right? And only 26% remain in pure engineering. They all drift into that are non-technical, non-engineering kind of roles. You all have studied equally as any male, so why do you let that go? Right? So don't
Exactly.
focus on the
Yeah.
technical and focus on on your self-enhancement thing, but you have to focus on the technical, because we have people who have told us, oh man, I have a women boss and adds no value at all because they're not technically competent. And I think we're a little tired of hearing that. So if y'all can keep your, there is only one accelerator in a car, but unfortunately we need two. We need an accelerator on our self-development. We need one on our technical. And both have to go at an equal pace for us to make our car go at the speed that we want it to go.
Absolutely, absolutely. And moving to the last question, do you have any advice for us, heads of such communities? Like we have this woman in computer science, so what more can we do with such communities in our colleges?
It's always good to show different role models and the spectrum of role models. But at the same time, I'd urge you not to only focus on women, because it's just that you should bring experts in any field, whether they're male, female, or transgender. They have to be experts so that you get the best of it, right? It doesn't matter if but role models you can have for all, how did they do their careers, how did they face, the questions that you asked me, kind of questions can be asked. But if you want to give technical expert kind of question, look out for a female. I urge you to. But if you can't, it is okay to get a male also to speak to you, because you want the best for your society, right? So one is that. And then don't look at your society only in terms of events, event after event after event, because there will be a fatigue. You'll get only 20 people, 11 people, 9 people, 6 people. Then in the end, it's only the organizers that will be there. I'm sure you're already facing it, because we are staring at screens all the time. So don't become too event driven. Think of things that will engage them outside that also. I mean, codeathons or hackathons or anything. It could be, who learns something the fastest, get free certificate somewhere. And I think a lot of things that you all can do is probably get even recruiters to come and speak to you. Say, what exactly do we look for in a resume? What does our AI look for? Because today's world, AI does the first level of screening, right? And if your resume doesn't go through that first level because it doesn't have the necessary keywords, you're lost then and there. Ask them to talk about that. And that in a way is technical, right? But in the same way, it'll help you then to make sure your resume stands out. And then, of course, try to find ways and means everybody in your, society or association can stand out. What makes, like, they should be proud to be a women in computer science. I don't know what you call yourselves, fellow or a member, right? Am I proud? Are you proud? Yeah, so it should be. And they're saying that there are so many things happening there. We're like, if you're not there, you're missing it out. And of course, my favorite thing is also that a lot of benefit will come if you collaborate with your fellow associations, right? If all the women groups get together and then have a very, very, real mind-blowing kind of week planned out, I think that will give you much more benefit than anything else. I mean, I don't know, you all haven't opened bank accounts as yet, but when you do open bank accounts, you'll see that they will sell you something else. It's called cross-selling, right? So if you get this, you get that. If you get this, you get that. So, you should do a lot of cross-selling within your association, because there's benefit. There's not competition. Everybody has to benefit.
Absolutely, absolutely. Those were some really great, and they were really insightful, and we'll keep that all in mind. Thank you so much, Manognya.
Yeah, thank you once again from Wix, and this talk was really insightful. and your journey is definitely inspiring. I'm sure this will help the students of our community as well as others. So I'll stop the recording in a second.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. I really appreciate and I'm honored to be here. It's always a pleasure talking to young, because you all are the future. You all are my future CXOs, right? And I wish that each and every one of you all becomes, your own CEOs or your own entrepreneurs or whatever, but achieve what you dream of.